Beauty Bite. So I don't know how many of you saw this, but back in the beginning of August there was a sort of teaser trailer for the new Sherlock season, and when I saw it I was so excited. And then there's also the fact that Elementary is going to be starting up again on the 26th of September with their second season. Now personally I loved both of these two shows, but if you're on the interwebs then you might know that the fandoms of Sherlock and Elementary kind of tend to be a bit at war with each other about which show is the best. The story goes that CBS supposedly asked BBC if they could do a sort of American spin-off of Sherlock, similarly to how they've done things like The Office and Shameless, but BBC apparently said no, and then not long after that, the series Elementary was announced. So a lot of fans of Sherlock felt like they were kind of ripping off the show, and in their defense, Elementary is very different from Sherlock. Now, Elementary takes place in New York City, whereas Sherlock takes place in London, and there are quite a few differences to the show. I'd say that Elementary is kind of a bit more, well, Americanized, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do get kind of a lot of the cheap thrills, and the first half of season 1 I felt like was a bit more CSI than Sherlock Holmes. It just takes a little bit to get into the series, but towards the end of it I was really enjoying it, and I thought that the story progression and the characters' relationships were really interesting, and I think that if you haven't seen Elementary, definitely give it a couple of episodes until you toss it to the side. Now, Sherlock is a British show made by the BBC, and I have to admit that I have a tendency to feel like a lot of the BBC shows, which often become sort of these cult shows, much like Sherlock, they tend to be a little bit on the cheesy side, like Doctor Who and Merlin. And don't get me wrong, because I really loved Merlin. I thought it was a great show, but you know, the kind of special effects and stuff, and sometimes the acting and the dialogues can be a little bit on the cheesy side, but that just is not the case whatsoever with Sherlock. I think the show is presented amazingly, the script is really well written, the acting is like so incredibly good, and I'm gonna get back to that in a minute. Unlike Elementary, which sort of took a little bit for me to get into, Sherlock literally had me within a few seconds. Now, the Sherlock Holmes characters are actually quite different in both of the series. In Elementary, you have a Sherlock who is struggling a lot with his addictions, and he kind of has a lot of anger issues, and obviously both of them are kind of jerks because they don't really have that social understanding of how you're supposed to talk to people. But I kind of like the way Sherlock in the BBC series is portrayed because he's a bit more socially awkward, even though he comes across as being quite a jerk sometimes. The other Sherlock, for me personally, just isn't as understandable. Maybe it's because I feel like I often say the wrong things in social situations and can be a bit awkward sometimes, so that might be why I sympathize with the BBC Sherlock more than the Elementary one. The interesting thing that Elementary has done is that Watson is played by Lucy Liu, so they've done sort of a gender change on her, and frankly I don't mind at all. I think that they've stayed true to the character of Watson, and it can make for some interesting things in terms of the sort of Sherlock-Watson relationship and how they sort of really care about each other, maybe even more than just platonically. But for some strange reason, I feel like the Sherlock Holmes in the BBC version shows a lot more of that sort of intricate, caring relationship between them. Even though both of them are kind of hard and tough, there are these certain moments throughout the series where they kind of break down the barriers and you see how much they actually really care about each other, and it's really touching. And I think that Elementary has the potential to do that a lot more than it does, so hopefully that's sort of the direction they're going to go for season 2. The other sort of huge character in the Sherlock Holmes universe is obviously Moriarty. I actually think that the person who plays Moriarty in Elementary is quite good, and the acting is, you know, really great. But I'm sorry, nobody is ever going to be a better Moriarty than Andrew Scott. He is just amazing. And I mean, he got a BAFTA for his performance in Sherlock for Best Supporting Actor, so obviously he was doing something right. And I'm not going to spoil anything, But what they've done in Elementary, those of you who have seen it will know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I can't say too much, but I'm not entirely sure what they did there with the Moriarty character. I'm hoping that they're gonna expand a bit more on season 2, because I'm just kind of confused at the moment. Obviously, the cool thing about Elementary is that it is a 24 episode per season show, and each episode runs about 40-45 minutes, so there is a lot to see there. When it comes to Sherlock, there's only 3 episodes per season, but each episode is about as long as a movie, so it kind of makes up for it in a sense. And yeah, I think that they are both very different. I mean, if you enjoy Sherlock Holmes in general, I think that you're gonna like both. So don't feel like you have to be just part of one fandom. It's okay to love both of them. I think that for me personally, my favorite is gonna have to be Sherlock, just because it's just really one of those shows that comes once in a blue moon and is just amazing. And I want to hear from you guys. Those of you that have seen both of the shows, which one is your favorite? And if you've only seen one of the series, would you maybe consider watching the other one? Let me know in the comments below, and that's pretty much it. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it on Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is you share stuff, and hopefully I will see you guys very soon.